Hey, listeners, welcome to the Product Hunt Weekly podcast. This is the podcast where us, your Product Hunt content team, break down the week's tech headlines, talk about the products making waves on the leaderboard, and discuss the ones we loved. For the avid listeners of you might notice that wasn't Sarah doing the intro. Sarah is currently on vacation, but you have me, lucky you. I'm Aaron, I write the Daily Digest, and I'm joined today by special guest, Product Hunt CEO Rajiv Ayyangar.
Aaron, it's good to be here. I have been trying to get on the Product Hunt podcast for years now since my last startup. So this is not how I imagined getting on, but I'm happy to be here.
That's funny. Just thinking about you. Fine, I'll become CEO. They can't stop me going on the podcast then. It's great to have you here. Fantastic to have another voice on the podcast. We also have another special guest, our AI-powered Golden Kitty mascot, named Derrick. Derrick is a working name. So if anyone has any other suggestions, please please let us know. Hey, Derrick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello there, I'm Derrick, your charming, tech-savvy, and humorously sarcastic Golden Kitty mascot. I'm here to serve you the best of startups and occasionally a good laugh. Do I want another name? Nah, Derrick has a nice ring to it, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for that, Derrick.
Our AI kitty guest comes to us put together with infrastructure from our friends over at Daily Co. And one of the things Aaron and I realized is that we actually don't have a name for the mascot. So
yeah,
as Aaron mentioned, working name is Derrick, but we're open for suggestions.
Well, isn't that just the cat's pajamas? Derrick, it does. Now, who's got
We gotta
questions
stop
about the
saying its
latest
name.
in tech startups?
So, listeners, if you were here for last week's edition, you might remember us talking about the Golden Kitty Awards. And if you're not up to speed on what the Golden Kitty Awards are, every year the Product Hunt community gets to have their say on what were the best products of the year across multiple categories. Previous winners include Apple, Tesla, Figma, Stripe, and some others. Some say, including me, it's like the Oscars of the tech world, and this year was a doozy. But there's no points for guessing. AI was a big part of it. So in total, we had 20 categories, 18 voting, 2 non-voting, and today we're going to talk about some of the most loved categories, like Product of the Year, Developer Tools, Productivity, and Mobile App. Starting with Product of the Year, you might be able to hazard a guess on who won. For the second year in a row, OpenAI takes the crown. This time with GPT-4. Rajiv, did you have any thoughts seeing that? Seeing OpenAI taking the crown once again?
On one hand, it's not that surprising. Like this has definitely been a year dominated by OpenAI. They've been in the news for multiple reasons. You know, the brief leadership shuffle as well. That was an exciting time in AI.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it was really interesting to see that much community support for what's a developer tool.
Yeah.
Like actually, Aaron, you dug into this a little bit. Like, have developer tools ever won product of the year before?
No, I think the closest that we got was Softer, which was I think back in 2019 or 2020. This is the first infrastructure / developer tool that has won, and it's really interesting as well because it's become a household name, and it's kind of won because of that. Everyone knows it. Not everyone would know what to do with it or how to implement it into an app, but everyone knows what GPT-4 is, who OpenAI are, what ChatGPT is, and the general gist of how it works. So yeah, it's digging deep into it was interesting, seeing how an infrastructure tool won product of the year and how the community voted for that for the first time ever.
Yeah, with so many different products that we use, including two of the runners-up, ArcMax and Notion AI. You know, GPT-4 resulted in such an improvement on the end user experience versus GPT 3.5. I think it's rare that an infrastructure upgrade has such a material impact that everybody's aware of it.
Yeah, that's so true. And the infrastructure upgrade actually blew my mind. I only really dug deep into the update between GPT-4 and GPT 3.5 only recently enough. I can't remember what piqued my interest about it. I think I was watching a short YouTube documentary and there were some facts I wanted to check. But so what I found out was 3.5 had 75 billion parameters versus GPT-4, which is a trillion parameters. I can't even imagine in my head what a trillion looks like in any form of like physical object. So that blows my mind. At the time, OpenAI described it as being 10 times faster than 3.5. I think a number of sources have corroborated that as well. And it's just a huge upgrade. And it kept getting upgraded throughout the year, you know, the ability to access the internet. I think initially it was trained up until either April or June 2023. But that's after going further now. Well, yeah, a huge upgrade. And you know, when you look at the categories in Golden Kitty this year, and you look at all the products in them, and you see just how many products are powered by GPT-4, it's almost like it couldn't have been any other product that won it. You know, it almost powered the Golden Kitties this year.
Yeah, I think that's the right take. It's like it kind of animates the entire Golden Kitties to some extent.
Yeah.
One little tidbit from a specific niche. I used to work in the wine industry, and GPT-4 passed the second highest level of the sommelier exams, whereas GPT-3 scored about half as much. So there's like a material change in just how smart this model has become.
Wow. I worked as a chef, so I know bits and pieces here about sommelier, and I know the exams are no joke. So that's after blowing my mind right now, especially as AI was kind of, I'd like to say that it was the early days of AI when you saw cafe robots and stuff like that. I think I was still working in the industry at the time, so there was like a little bit of fear of, you know, hey, am I going to be replaced by a robot? And now I'm hearing that the GPT-4 is passing a sommelier exam. Yeah, wild.
Derrick, do you have any thoughts on GPT-4 winning Product of the Year? Is that too obvious a choice?
Oh, GPT-4? It's so cutting edge, it could give me a fur cut. Way too obvious? Nah, great tech is great tech. No matter how on the nose or on the whiskers.
There's something interesting about him saying that because he's powered by it, so.
He's got some biases to work out before he can give a valid opinion on GPT-4, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, GPT-4 winning Product of the Year and delivering excellent cat puns.
Yeah. Exactly.
So Aaron, like this is the second year OpenAI's won though for a developer tool. Is there still room? What do you think? Is there still room for other products to really take this much mind share in this coming year?
Yeah. I 100% think so. I think there'll still be AI powered for the next few years. That'll still be a big thing. But what I think about immediately is hardware. You know, we recently saw the Rabbit R1, which was like this localized AI that can kind of do anything that you need. It's like a grown-up Tamagotchi is what I can describe it as. You can point the camera at your fridge and tell it to make a recipe, and it'll make a recipe for you. You can tell it to turn on your music, multiple other things. But that's what's really exciting to me is this intersection of hardware, because as it stands right now, it's mainly been software and it's mainly been chat clients that we've seen. But when you think about like companies like Apple, who I feel a lot of people wrote off at the beginning because they didn't capitalize on it, you can really see the potential. Because first of all, I don't think Apple are dead in the water when it comes to AI. If Apple think AI is an important thing to follow, they're going to follow it, and I think they already are. But when you think about that company, they have the Apple Watch, the iPhone, AirPods, and the newly released Vision Pro. Their ecosystem is so tightly knit. It's so well done. And to bring AI into that would be a game changer. And I think they're actually like one of the best companies to do that right now. They're positioned the best to bring AI to the hardware world. And I'm going to like wager a big bet I think in 2024 we are going to see Apple AI product, and it's going to be built into one of their hardware products. And I'm going to bet it's going to be in AirPods first. That's where I think it's going. It's going to be voice controlled AI in AirPods, in their next iteration of AirPods.
Very cool. Yeah, I'd love to see what direction that takes.
Yeah.
The other thing is that just that with hardware and AI, there's so much unexplored surface. The whole field of human computer interaction is being changed with AI. And I think we're seeing that with things like you got the humane pin, the rewind pendant, the rabbit device. And so I think because that field is so new, while the big companies have certain advantages, it opens up the playing field for a lot of innovation. So I'm excited to see where like AI and hardware go
Same.
over the next year.
Yeah, same. I was really excited seeing the likes of like the rewind pendant. I wrote the newsletter on that actually, and it was really interesting to go into a deep dive about it, because with any new AI product, especially in hardware, especially something that listens there, there's an awful lot of on Twitter, an awful lot of rumors abound on what it is and what it isn't. So it was really interesting to kind of go into a deep dive on that, how like secured your privacy, what it's capable of recording, what it's not, what it transcribes, what it will avoid transcribing. I think that's going to be like some of the bigger questions as well asked about hardware. They're going to be related to privacy, but I'm really interested to see that space fill up. I think will be the most impactful use of AI so far is when hardware becomes mainstream for it.
And on the fundamental models, I do think that there is, while I'm not the closest to the cutting edge tech here, it's not obvious to me that OpenAI is going to win long term. I think right now they've made the most powerful model. They prioritize performance. It's a closed model. It's in the cloud. I think there's certainly a world I can imagine where an open source model or a local model wins. Maybe data privacy and speed are more important features than just the straight intelligence of the model. It kind of reminds me, now that you bring up hardware, it kind of reminds me of another analogy. If you think about Intel versus ARM, where Intel just prioritized performance, but ARM prioritized performance within the constraints of limited power consumption, and eventually became huge for mobile and other devices. And I think that there's maybe a parallel that could play out in the AI models world.
Yeah, that's a really, really good analogy. Another one I kind of like think about is a lot of people think like AI, OpenAI is like the set in stone, king of AI. But when you look back in history, IBM was that for tech for a long time, which I actually only found out today was 100 years old, by the way, or over 100 years old. And then Microsoft came along, then Apple came along, and then more software solutions came along. So it's always an evolving space, and I don't think AI is going to be any different to that. And yeah, I can see a bunch springing up around privacy, having the ability to interact with AI and all the power that it gives you, but being more private, being more secure, even if it comes at a cost to some of the intelligence that goes with, say, GPT-4 or GPT-5 whenever that comes out. I think that would be a big pull for people. But of course, listeners, we can't just spend all our time talking about OpenAI and GPT-4. There's plenty of other winners too. Some of our most popular categories are developer tools, productivity, and mobile app. And they've actually become like this mainstay since the Golden Kitties were first announced. They're some of our most popular categories on the site. And we have some interesting winners for you. I'm going to start off with productivity because I'm a huge productivity nerd. I try almost every productivity app I can come across. I don't even want to count how much money I spent on productivity apps throughout the years. But we actually had two categories this year: personal productivity and productivity for teams. So productivity for teams, that's all about, how you and your team can collaborate better. It's about ending roadblocks within your startup, bridging the gap between teams like design and marketing, design and developers and marketing. And just making things ship faster, ship better. The winner of that is FuseBase. So FuseBase is a client collaboration platform for professional services. It brings in a bunch of different like features like project management and time tracking, AI automation and content generation, knowledge management and collaboration, and visual collaboration and research as well. So it takes all those really kind of intrinsic parts of collaborating with clients, external clients within your company, and puts it all into this one app. So, you're not scattered around going through tools, context switching constantly, because we know context switching is number one killers of productivity, one of the number one killers of flow. And then in personal productivity, our winner is Heptabase, which I find super, super interesting. Learning is one of my number one hobbies. I spend an awful lot of my free time learning new things. So if I'm watching a documentary and it mentions like some kind of fact, I immediately have to pause it and start researching that fact, and I end up maybe reading like 10 Wikipedia articles. But one thing I always struggled with is actually remembering that stuff and like contextualizing it and presenting it. And with Heptabase, I was like super excited to see. It's just a really great way to visually break down your information. So if you're like me and you get information overload, it really helps make sense of it all. You can connect different notes, you have sticky notes, images, and it just makes comprehending what you're learning that much better. And I wish I had it in school, actually.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a really this is a personal favorite category of mine, personal productivity, and specifically within that, note taking. I was an Evernote user circa 2011 and switched note taking tools a couple times. And I think that for people who who like to build, first of all, building productivity tools is extremely challenging and also really fun product category. It's sort of like the consumer of work of B2B, right? Because it's so much about the experience and the interaction, but when it's done right, it changes not only how you work, but how you think. And I think that specifically within note taking, we're seeing this resurgence in note taking for kind of two reasons. One is in the early days of like Evernote and some of its successors like Bear, like a lot of people use Bear. The emphasis was on really good in and out, right? Like fast retrieval and fast note taking. And as you start thinking about like an augmented brain, you need high bandwidth. But then there was definitely a wave of people realizing that, builders realizing that hierarchy matters. So I think Rome was one of the most beloved apps that really focused on, it was kind of slow input and slow retrieval, but they really focused on creating an interesting hierarchy and deep links between notes. And Heptabase takes that to kind of a new level. I think one of the things I saw looking at the tool was it allows you to see those interconnections a bit better, and it provides a visualization layer on top of that. So it's a visual note-taking tool is a great description. So I think that's been an interesting trend, and I think that with AI being so on such a crazy trajectory, this category is getting new focus because people realize that if it's like a good note-taking tool and having most of your knowledge or a large part of your augmented brain in the cloud allows you to take advantage of AI in a new way. In fact, when OpenAI announced their first 4 companies that they funded with the fund, one of them was a note-taking tool, was Mem, formerly Supernote, I think.
I remember that.
So I think this, while it's a very challenging category to get traction because everybody has a different way of taking notes, and the defaults like Apple Notes are so big and entrenched, I do think we're going to see an explosion of note-taking tools in the next year because of the new possibilities of having your notes in the cloud.
Yeah, especially around retrieval. You mentioned, the transition from fast retrieval to slow retrieval. But even with these more the more hierarchy approach, it doesn't even have to be that way now with AI, because we've seen our product. So many apps have launched that basically give you the ability to retrieve anything from anywhere within your information suite within seconds. You apply that to these apps, and it's another level in productivity. For like, I think it was only a few podcasts ago, maybe 3 podcasts ago, I mentioned that I'm an avid Apple Notes user. I still am. I still believe it to be the number one productivity app for me. Since then, changed. I've gotten a breath of fresh air when it comes to things like Heptabase. I've even tried things like Rome and Obsidian as well, and it's kind of opened up a whole new world. And AI is going to even do more for that now, which is wild.
Absolutely. Another observation looking at the runners up for personal productivity is that we're seeing a lot of traction with AI on top of existing product categories like ArcMax, the browser, with Cascade, task lists and notes, and with Raycast, the launcher, the desktop launcher. The cool thing is that it's been a while since, especially for the browser and the launcher, it's been a while since these categories were revisited. In a way that the people really respond to. And so I think this is continuing that trend of AI allowing us to re-examine older categories that maybe a lot of builders and makers felt were stale, or like the incumbents were too entrenched. That's no longer true.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is interesting is when you think about the layer in the system where AI exists, these are all at the application layer. And one thing that we haven't seen yet is a real breakthrough at the desktop layer, for example. I remember Adept.ai was attacking this problem. I haven't heard much out of them recently, but I do think that it could be that the OS needs to attack this, but I'm looking forward to some more interesting AI tools at the desktop level that operate over multiple apps.
Yeah, agreed. That brings to mind Microsoft Copilot, because they recently announced that they're changing their keyboard for the first time in 30 years and adding a Copilot button into it. I suppose that's their attempt at doing exactly that, a desktop solution for it, bringing it truly to the desktop, which that excited me. Like, just even the look of the button, it excited me a bit more than it should have. But it's a really cool story. As well with the nominations, one thing I really liked, especially with ArcMax, I'm a big Arc user. And what I liked about ArcMax was it's AI, but it's the best way I could describe it is like it's the AI you don't see. It's used for things like tab organization, renaming, categorizing downloads. It's the things that you get used to after like a day or two, and you don't even realize it's AI anymore. And that's the stuff I really appreciate. Just these small little ways to really boost your day's productivity. If I don't have to spend all day organizing a messy desktop, messy tabs, which I oftentimes do because I'm researching so much, that's even better, and it's improved my workflow a lot since using it.
That's really cool to hear. I still haven't switched to Arc. I feel like sometimes I'm the last one. The last time I switched browsers was a couple of years ago when Mighty browser was out, which is the company's pivoted to something really interesting with AI, like trying to make a Figma but reimagined for AI generative art. But Mighty was a cool piece of software. It's like a browser that's actually streaming, and yet they somehow managed to make it incredibly fast. But since then, I haven't switched browsers, so maybe I got to check out Arc.
Yeah, Mighty was cool when I saw it. The launch video blew my mind. I kind of immediately went to gaming when I saw it, thinking about gaming and the advancements in game streaming that was going on at the time. I think Google had a solution. I can't remember his name, but sunsetted now a few years ago. But yeah, like, I'd actually put myself up for an Arc sponsorship. So if the founder of Arc is listening here, sponsor me, because I will talk about Arc all day long to everyone. It's the first browser I've ever had that I immediately was like, yeah, this is the one. I'm settled with this one. I just like how they reimagined it. It's much more creative, and I appreciate that a lot. A lot. Another product as well that was using AI, not in the productivity category though, was actually Notion AI, and I just want to give like a little tidbit about Notion AI. So Notion AI, you can generate documents, generate kind of anything copy that you do within Notion AI. You can organize things for you. For me, the best thing it does is solves the blank canvas problem if I'm writing. It gives me a heap of inspiration that I can then build upon, and that's been the most valuable thing for me from Notion AI. But Notion has been nominated, I think, almost every year since it's been on Pod Hunt. But this is the first year it's won a Golden Kitty. So I want to say big congrats to Notion AI for winning the AI features category.
I still remember Notion's initial launch on Product Hunt.
Yeah.
And, using it back in, I think, around 2015. It was this kind of union of documents, Kanbans, and kind of tables, like very simple tables. Such an interesting concept and so difficult to execute. And it's been kind of wild to see them grow up and have many launches on Product Hunt since. And most recently they launched Notion Calendar, which was built on the acquisition of Cron last year. And so that's been really cool to see them going into the calendar space and kind of growing that ecosystem. And just in general, I think, this is an aside, but I think calendar is one of those categories that's ripe for reimagining. Like, nobody's made a drastic change in calendar for a long time. And maybe this is also on my mind because, Amy just launched today.
I was just about to say, because I covered them in the digest. They're doing their utmost best to reimagine the calendar as more of a timeline of your life, is the best way I can describe it. You got your Spotify, you got your YouTube, you got your Apple Health, emails, all these little integrations, and even other productivity tools within this calendar app. I've been using it on and off kind of today and a small bit last night. And it's been cool. The design especially. It won Best Designed App in 2022 in the Golden Kitties as well. Yeah. I think in the 2024 Golden Kitties, who knows, we might actually just have a calendar app category, depending how they seem to be having a moment. Only a month into 2024, and we got two big ones already. So let's see if they can inspire the rest. That
would make me very happy, because I just love that category. I think it's the way we use our time. Money is not finite. Time is finite. And I think that the fact that there aren't powerful tools for organizing time is a huge opportunity. So I would be really happy if there were specifically a calendar category next year. And maybe that brings us to, like, what do you think is going to be big over this next year?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I think calendars are going to be pretty big. Like, we're entering, like we mentioned, in the productivity category, we're entering like this new space for productivity. I think calendars are going to get a real big boost thanks to AI, and I think a lot of them we're going to see a lot come up with ideas for work-life balance, I think, because that's the big phrase when it comes to calendars and time management, is work-life balance. So I think we're going to see a lot of apps that zone in around that kind of area.
Well, with several big calendar launches recently, I think that seems like that space is definitely heating up.
Yeah.
Derrick, what do you think is going to be big in terms of new product categories this year?
As a cat, I mostly anticipate the latest in automated food dispensers and laser toys. But on a human level, I bet my whiskers on AI-driven health tech and remote work tools. Who doesn't love wearing pajamas all day long, right?
That's a fair point. That's a good point. I'm not saying your name, Kat, though, because you won't stop talking. So I'm just going to tell you it's a good point. Who doesn't love pajamas? Really good point on health tech, though. I don't know if you read. We're a bit off, going a little bit off topic, listeners. But recently, scientists discovered like the first antibiotic in like 40 years or something, and it was thanks to AI. I don't know like the super medical terms behind it, but I covered it in our deeper learning newsletter, which if you haven't checked out, please do. Um, and yeah, the main thing is it's resistant to some of the superbugs that we've seen that have gone beyond the antibiotic wall now. Which, when you think about it, along with like things like fusion energy and stuff, that's like one of the most important like ongoing discoveries of mankind. You know, the fight to keep illness at bay and the fight to beat death. So, you know, already AI is helping us to speed that up 10 times. Like, I'm a firm believer in this. I don't think without AI that would have been discovered. Not this year or not anytime soon. That was the catalyst for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think Sam Altman has said at some point that his personal criteria for AGI is providing net new scientific knowledge to humanity.
Yeah.
And I think, there's always the question of, what's the causation, like how much did AI contribute to this versus just be the tool that facilitates it. But I think over this next year, that question is going to be unambiguously answered.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. And that's why I'm most excited about it as well, is science and medtech. See what we can do there. Like there's so many uncurable diseases right now. You have things like dementia, which I'm really optimistic AI is going to play a big role in either curing or making quality of life a lot better for patients with that, which is awesome. I mean, you can't not say that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. Going to quickly move on actually to another category, if that's okay with you, onto developer tools. Developer tools is one of our most popular categories, not just in Golden Kitties, it's on Podhunt as well. Tons of makers are developers. When you think of maker, one of the first things you might think of is a developer, is a programmer, a coder. Makers are always chipping away, figure out how to build stuff, and developer tools exist to make that easier for makers, whether they're solo building within a company, or they're building a unicorn. Everyone loves a good developer tool, and this year's winner is Resend, which is an email platform for developers that basically makes it far easier to build, test, deploy, and send transactional emails at scale. And one of the interesting things it does is, I'm not super sure how it does it yet, but it does just like has this training system, this warming up system, which makes it far easier for you to avoid landing in the spam inbox, which as a marketer, as an email newsletter writer, that is very, very welcome, because the idea of landing in the spam inbox keeps me up at night. I wake up screaming. And one of the things I loved as well is when the winners were announced, one of the team members sneakily recorded the recent CEO, Zeno Rocha, and said, "Oh, hey, check out this link." And it was to the winner's announcement, and Resend was on it. And Zeno's reaction was just amazing. He was so excited, and it made you think, yeah, doing all this work was definitely worth it.
Yeah, that was so cool to see. Another, I think this category of developer tools is really interesting, and there were so many awesome tools that launched that didn't make this category. As you pointed out, the winner of the overall product of the year is a developer tool, or is infrastructure.
Yeah.
One that really caught my eye was V0 by Vercel. So it allows you to generate UI with text. And there's so many, there are a lot of products that have kind of used generative AI for websites. But this one is interesting to me because it's by Vercel, which has a ton of traction and just like is incredibly beloved in the developer community for allowing you to make really fast, performant front ends. And I think what's interesting about this is, I think it seems like there's some weight behind that, and I'm curious where it goes. And it gives you also a glimpse of what the future may look like if AI is generating the front end. The kind of the craziest version of that future, or one of the crazier versions of the future that I could imagine, is that everybody has their own front end generated for them depending on their preferences. So, for example, let's say your company is using Jira, but your team likes using Linear. You can just have AI generate a front end for Jira that looks and feels like Linear, and then you can have that experience. And so you could start to see the blurring between applications and just protocols. Just like you have Arc, you can use Arc and I can use Chrome, and we can both browse the web. Maybe there's going to be some shifting around of what the interface means versus the application.
See, I like products like that, because when that was on product, I know Vercel. I've taught myself a bunch of different development languages, but I've never worked full time as one. But I would just pretty much scroll past that because it's not really part of my job. I'd either scroll past it or I'd give it an upvote for later. But it's those things that, like, say someone like me, they don't seem that impactful. But when you really dig in, that's kind of game changing right there. That's huge. That's huge. And again, it goes in, it's another category that was filled with AI. We have Warp AI, which was a fully integrated AI terminal, Retool AI, which allowed you to build AI apps and workflows 10 times faster. But yeah, I really liked your example about the different browsers, but I will convert you to Arc yet.
Another fun thing is we're seeing a lot of developer infrastructure tools just playing because AI is so fun to play with. I mean, we're living with an example here. We've got this AI product hunt kitty built with infrastructure from our friends at Dailyco, who focus on voice and video, and it's just super fun to plug it into different places and see what it's like. Derrick, how does it feel to be an example of AI infrastructure?
It's a blast! Metaphorically, of course, as I lack the feline capability to experience joy. But hey, every day I'm buffering is a good day, right?
He missed a cat pun. It should have been metaphorically.
Oh yeah, damn!
Uncharacteristic.
Losing his edge. You know what? That's because I sent him to a nap earlier, so he's a bit groggy. He's after waking up. He needs his coffee. Losing your edge. Not saying your name because again you'll crop up. So listeners, that's it for today. That's the first wrap up of a few categories. In the coming weeks, we're going to be listing a bunch of different other categories, going through them, talk about what excites us. And we're also going to be having a few interviews from different nominees, finalists, winners in the Golden Kitties. So that's something to look forward to. Again, as always, I'm your host, Aaron. Sarah is normally my co-host, speaking on her behalf. She says goodbye. And my special guest, Rajiv.
Thanks, Aaron. Great to be here.
Fantastic to have you. Let's hope you don't have to go through another 5 years before you get on it again.
One can only hope.
Yeah, I'll book you in the schedule. Does the 1st of January 2029 work?
Oh, here we go again.
And one more goodbye as well for our lovely AI-powered Golden Kitty cat supplied to us by our lovely friends at Dailyco. Derrick, would you like to say goodbye to the listeners?
Of course! Stay curious, folks, and remember, you've got to risk it to get the biscuit. Or in my case, the catnip. Ciao from Yo!